especially for the role that you're playing, for Frank. What would you say were the main things that changed his views and his character in season 1, and what are the things that he has to deal with in the second season?
Well, I think when we arrived, we filmed it in Vancouver, in Canada, and when we arrived for season 2, all the actors were quite shocked about the ideas the writers and the creators had. In season 2, all the characters move in very different directions, and geographically and emotionally. As I said, we spend more time in Berlin in season 2, and also the sci-fi element of the show, which we really didn't touch on much in season 1. These film reels and what they mean, and propaganda and the realities, the different realities that these film reels show, is looked at in greater depth. So for us, from Frank Frink, he changes enormously in season 1. What's very interesting, I mean, the idea of the show, this alternative history. I think also the show looks at the idea, or asks the question of us all, which is, are we a product of our environment, or have we a sense of self-determination? Can we change things ourselves, or are we just a product of our environment? And for Frank Frink, my character, he in season 1 tries to conform, survive, keeps his head down, and in season 2 he decides to try a different approach and to actually stand up and believe in something and fight for something. So he becomes, in many ways, in season 2, radicalized and joins a resistance cell, or some people would say a terrorist cell, and starts to be more proactive in his life, and he makes choices that before he would never have done, and so he takes matters into his own hands and starts fighting, and so he becomes a very different person, really, and living in a different world and meeting very different people.
Okay, also es ändert sich sehr viel. In der ersten Staffel ist Frank ja noch eher angepasst, hat viel Angst, versteckt sich eher, macht sich klein, versucht möglichst nicht aufzufallen, und in der zweiten Staffel ändert sich sehr viel, aber auch geografisch. Es werden an ganz anderen Orten die Geschichten erzählt. Es wird viel gedreht in Vancouver, man ist viel in Berlin. Das wird bestimmt auch für uns Berliner nochmal besonders spannend, sich das genau anzugucken, wie es dann ausgesehen hätte in dieser alternativen Realität. Und Frank steht jetzt auch für das, an das er glaubt, und wird mehr so zum Kämpfer, vielleicht auch von manchen eher angesehen sogar als Terrorist. Das war das Wort, das Rupert gerade benutzt hat. Frank hat ja, so kommt es einem vor, in der ersten Staffel vor allem durch Johanna viel Leid erfahren, und mich würde interessieren, was fühlt er denn jetzt wirklich für sie? Was ist denn das? So during the first season, you get the feeling that most of the harm that Frank is feeling is caused by Juliana. So how does he feel about her?
Women. It's funny, isn't it? I think in times of great turmoil in war, I found it. I was reading an article about the migrants in the camp in Calais in France. I don't know if you, I'm sure you read it, and the place called The Jungle. And this English newspaper took a journalist there, and he was asking these refugees what they were talking about. And these two ladies were arguing, and they had travelled all the way from Syria to France, to Calais, and trying to get to Britain. And they were arguing about the fact that her husband had slept with someone else, and they were having a domestic argument. And what was very interesting about the article that I read was, after all the horrible things that they'd been through to get to Calais, they were still very much arguing about domestic matters, even after all the hardship. And I think with our show, it reminded me of the same thing, that ultimately we identify with domestic problems as much as world problems. And I think the show, for my character, looks at the relationship with Juliana Crane, but also the relationship, the loss of my sister, the murder of my sister and my sister's kids. So that drives my character in season 2, and the anger and the rage, the sense of loss, and perhaps even a sense of revenge, perhaps. So that's really where my character is. The show also goes into Berlin, as I mentioned, and actually, interestingly, you will see Hitler's, our depiction of Hitler's office in season 2, which I know the designers spent a lot of time looking at historical photographs, so it will be interesting, having seen the desk in the museum, to see if the desk is the same, similar in the show. And I remember it's not too dissimilar. I think it's pretty much the same. So there will be many similarities, I think, in season 2 to look at. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, but you haven't answered as to how you like Juliana.
Oh, how do I like Juliana?
Yeah.
Well, I think for Frank, this is maybe boring, but for Frank, everything comes back to Juliana for my character, whether he likes it or not. At the beginning of season 2, in episode 2 actually, not episode 1, but episode 2, he, not to give too much away, but he discovers certain truths about Juliana, and that sets them on different paths for the whole season, really, different paths. And then that comes back to haunt him at the end of season 2. So yes, so he really feels that he's been betrayed, perhaps, by her in season 2. So he goes on his own journey.
So many cliffhangers here in one answer. My God. Okay, so I'll try to put this in a few sentences.
Yes.
Thank you. Also für Frank ist Juliana irgendwie der Anfang zu allem und irgendwie auch das Ende. Er kommt nicht so wirklich von ihr los. Es scheint aber eine Erkenntnis zu geben in der zweiten Folge der zweiten Staffel, wo er davon ausgeht, betrogen worden zu sein in irgendeiner Weise, die sie erstmal auseinanderbringt, aber am Ende wieder konfrontiert. Völlig gut gemacht hat er das, sehr, sehr unklar und schwammig formuliert. Also wir müssen alle bis zum Ende gucken, so viel steht fest. Außerdem hat er auch nochmal ein bisschen erwähnt, wie genau und wie viel man von Berlin und vielleicht sogar dem Büro von Adolf Hitler sehen wird, wo wir dann alle Schreibtische vergleichen können. Wir haben jetzt das Original oder ein Foto des Originals gesehen.
I think I am an optimist, I think, overall. So I probably believe that you can, as an individual, affect change. But I think a lot of it is to do with education, maybe, and I think background has something to do with your family, where you're from, and your environment. But I hope, being an optimist, you can still affect change yourself. I think.
Also er ist tief im Herzen ein Optimist und glaubt und möchte auch, glaube ich, glauben, dass er meistens, dass wir selber durch unser Verhalten die Welt entscheidend verändern können und auch Veränderungen hervorbringen können. Das hat natürlich auch damit zu tun, irgendwie was dein Umfeld, wie dein Umfeld ist, wie deine Familie ist, wo du herkommst und ganz viel mit Bildung. Eine letzte Frage noch, that would be obviously the history that we're seeing in Manhattan, the High Castle, is fiction. And we live on a free state. The United States is not oppressed, neither is the UK. Do you think we're done with that chapter? Is there no more chance? Have we learned our lesson?
I'm an actor, not a historian, nor an expert on anything. But I think perhaps history, the old adage that history repeats itself, I don't know, I hope not, but I think we're in interesting times now. I think it seems, when I look at in Great Britain with Brexit, and in America with Donald Trump, and through Europe in Austria, and maybe here, I don't know, but it feels there is political unrest maybe I'm generalizing, but it feels that there is a change. Whether or not we would ever go back to a similar kind of scenario, I hope not. My hope is that the internet, actually, and social media and all those things would prevent such times again, such atrocities. But I do feel that we are, as human beings, very prone to repeating ourselves in some form or other, but I don't know where it's going to end.
Also auf die Frage, ob wir damit durch sind mit Zukunften, wie sie jetzt hier in Castle stattfinden, sagt er, als Schauspieler, nicht als Historiker, einfach als Schauspieler, als Mensch. Er hat natürlich auch keine konkrete Antwort drauf, aber sein Gefühl ist, die Geschichte wiederholt sich oft, so sagt man ja, History repeats itself, die Gefahr ist da, und wenn er an den Brexit denkt, wenn er an Donald Trump denkt oder an Österreich oder vielleicht auch an Momente und Bewegungen hier, dann macht er sich so seine Gedanken, hofft aber, dass wir klüger sind und vielleicht auch, dass die richtigen Menschen genau das leben, was wir vorhin gesagt haben, dass wir unsere Zukunft und unsere Geschichte beeinflussen. So let's, I guess, do, in the very tiny parts, our very best, so history won't repeat itself. And just enjoy the first episode of season 2. Are you ready, Rupert?
Yes, I've seen it. It's good.
It's good. Okay, well, I feel like some of you listening, you need to see it now too. Don't you think? Seid ihr bereit? Sind Sie bereit?